Hello and welcome to the business interview here on France 24. My name is Marcus Carlson. Today, I'm speaking to a man who's been dubbed one of Africa's most successful business leaders and also its foremost philanthropist. Mo Ibrahim was a pioneer in mobile phone technology in Africa, but in 2005, he sold off the company he founded, Celtel, for $3.4 billion. Since then, he's been working mostly with his foundation, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, and we've got the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Ibrahim today on the sidelines of the OECD's 50th anniversary here in Paris. Thanks very much indeed, sir, for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm grateful.
One of your stated goals is to change the image of Africa away from the rather dark and bleak picture that many of us may have here in the West. How are you hoping to achieve that? And seeing the Arab uprisings this year and also what's been going on in Ivory Coast, it must be a tough sell.
It is and it isn't. It is a tough sell because there is this perception about Africa as a hopeless, by dictators who are bloodthirsty and kleptocrats, and Africa is not really like that. We have some problems in Africa, but the large number of African countries are really peaceful countries and run reasonably well, not perfectly, but reasonably well. So there is a huge gap, really, between reality and perception. And when we started Celtel, our company in Africa, I mean, why we were successful is because of that gap between perception and reality. Telecom operators, Orange, Vodafone, all the great operators were very hesitant in investing in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. That's why it was a window for opportunity for us to invest. Whenever there is a big gap between reality and perception, there is really a very good business opportunity, which we have done, and that's how the company is extremely profitable. So we have an image problem, this is true. Having said that, we have also substance problem, and we should not deny that.
I was going to ask, surely there are some problems as well.
Absolutely.
And how do you crack down on them? What's the number one problem at this stage?
Governance. Governance. Everything stems out from good governance. What happened, we have wasted 50 years since our independence in Africa. Most African countries became independent 50 years ago. Unfortunately, and for a number of reasons, really Africa suffered from misrule and bad governance. And governance is not only about corruption or about transparency, although that's part of it. It's also about how to harness resources of the countries for the benefit of your people, all your people, not your family or your tribe or your group of people. Governance really about doing the right thing, making the tough decisions, pay attention to education, pay attention to agriculture, pay attention to the economy, education, health, etc. I mean, it's really how to deliver that basket of goods evenly and fairly to your people. That, unfortunately, we fail to do. And a succession of bad rulers and misgovernance really end up where we are. So what we're saying is good governance is essential, is a prerequisite for development.
You've started an annual prize for African leadership. It's given to an African leader every year, but in the past year, it wasn't given to anyone because no one was considered good enough.
Yeah.
Is the award, the Mo Ibrahim Award for Good Governance, going to be given out this year?
I hope so. I like you, I'm in the dark because we talk about good governance, we have to practice it as well. I'm not a member of the prize committee. It's a totally separate committee, and they decide, they research, investigate, and decide. We respect their decision. I hope there'll be a winner this year.
But there are no guarantees.
There's no guarantee, and we have to walk the talk. Sometimes when we say there is no winner, actually we are sending a very strong message too. So of course we'll have to have a winner.
But can you think of any candidates this year?
There must be some candidates this year.
Such as who?
But I cannot even discuss this because is improper, okay? Because I should not interfere in what the committee is doing. I'll be fired from the foundation actually for doing that. So it is something the prize committee will do. They will come on a Sunday in October and tell us. Monday morning, we'll have the press conference and we'll send out and tell people. So I only know 12 hours before everybody else. Like, you know, like everybody in the board will only know then. And that's fine.
Now, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, you also have an index that's tracking African governance. What is this index telling you of where we are at the moment? Is the curve upwards sloping, so to speak? Are things getting better or worse?
That's a very good question. Just a quick word about the foundation. I'm not sure your audience all know about the foundation. We talk about governance, and we think we need to define what is governance. We need to define and measure, so we know what we're talking about. That's why we have 88 parameters we measure, covering economy, health, human rights, transparency, corruption, gender issues, the position of women in Africa. All these things we measure and we publish every year. Now, that index is a scorecard to show where everybody is. Last year, when we issued our 2010 index, we said at the time, in general, we see definite development in economies. The African economies showing resilience, even though the world was going through a recession. Africa was doing very well. Africa has been doing well for the last 10 years now, actually. And that was really wonderful. One thing we have really raised was the issue of the retreat. We noticed starting in some areas in Africa, especially in the area of democracy.
So some countries are taking a step back when it comes to democracy.
And we said we are really concerned. We want to wave a red flag now. We can see in the area of democracy, things are really not moving forward, and we raise a flag. And the discussions of the region, we noted that democracy is at its worst in North Africa. We said that last September. See what happened in January in Tunisia and Egypt and Libya and elsewhere.
Do you have any
it's
other
very interesting, yeah.
Do you have any other hot spots that we should be keeping an eye on at this stage?
Yes, I think what we did, we look at the imbalances in the scores, and there is one thing outstanding. We published a paper actually about that. If you plot a diagram relating education, for example, against unemployment, against corruption, against political space or democracy, and you'll find this is the toxic mix. When you have good education system, reasonably good education, you have a lot of educated people, but no jobs. At the same time, you have a highly corrupt regime, and you have political stagnation, lack of democracy. Then you are asking for trouble, you're asking for Tahrir Square, etc. And we see 9 countries. I mean, we published that after Tunisia, and we said, look, Egypt, Sudan are spots which, Libya, there's a couple of other countries. And we said, these are going to be hot spots. And I think 2 of them proved to be hot spots. And that's a very interesting reading in the index, actually.
I want to get personal for a while. What drives you at this stage? You're already a very wealthy man. You're worth more than $1 billion. What drives you at this stage, and why are you doing the work that you are doing?
Let me just correct you. I'm not any longer a very wealthy man because I'm giving my money to Africa, really. Because I think it's wonderful to give back, and I'm giving back really to Africa. It is their money at the end. It's really justice. And I want to see my people, really. There's no reason for Africans to be poor. We have the 2nd largest continent in the world, and we are not many people. There's only 900 million Africans. That is half of the Chinese or Indians. And we have these huge resources. Nelson Mandela used to say, we are a very rich continent, but very poor people. Why? We need to do something about this. And I find myself, fortunately, in a good place to do something, because I have done business in Africa, and we did it without paying bribes, and we tell everybody you can do business in Africa without paying bribes. And Africa actually offered the highest return on equity anywhere in the world, according to the World Bank figures. Unfortunately, fund managers are not aware of these facts. They don't read. And so that's a wonderful place. It should be somewhere else. And if I can do anything to help there, that's wonderful.
I just want to ask you one last question. What would your number one piece of advice be to a business who wants to go into Africa from Europe, for instance, who wants to do business in Africa?
There is no difference doing business in Africa from anywhere else. You need to do your due diligence. You need to have a right business plan and what you want to do. You need to do all the sort of things you have to do as a businessman. There's no difference. And please, you don't have to pay bribes. Bribes eats up your bottom line. You start, you never stop, and it bleeds you. You don't need to. It's doable. Please come forward and do it and make money. And our foundation funds are invested in Africa. And we had like 50% return over the last 2 years. While funds we invested in European and American-centric funds lost money.
Mo Ibrahim, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the program. Thanks to you as well for watching.